Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to use flip sequins in your embroidery applique projects. I was sort of afraid to give this a try, but I saw someone on Facebook do it, so I thought I'm going to give it a whirl, and it's really not hard at all, and my machine didn't struggle whatsoever. So let's get started. So we're going to be using some flip sequins. I found this, it's a 5 3/8 by 1 yard, so 36 inches long. And this was available at Michael's, and they had all different colors. So these are those flip sequins. So you flip it this way, it's gold, this one's red. They had all kinds of colors. Here's a gold that flips to silver. Here's a green, this one's really cool. Flips to pink. Here is a pink that flips to silver. And here is a sort of a rainbow, flips to silver. They had other colors. These are just the ones that I picked up. They were $9.99 and they were 40% off right now. But we're going to be using this one, and we're going to be doing a Mickey Mouse or Minnie Mouse design. So I thought the red would be appropriate. We're also going to be using this crushed velvet. This you can get anywhere, Michael's, Joann's. Well, actually, I don't know if Michael's has it, but I know Joann's has it. You can order it online. I will try to link some in the description below. But this is just a crushed velvet. I had this left over from my scrunchie craze last year. And we're going to back it with some Heat and Bond Light. You can pick this up at Walmart, Joann's, just about any craft store, any place that has sewing notions. You want to put the Heat and Bond Light. You simply cut out a piece to match the size that you need. You put it on the back of your fabric, paper side up, iron it down, let it cool, and then you'll peel this backing up. So I'm going to go ahead and prep all that. I'm going to cut a piece of my fabric or sequin fabric. This is pretty thin. I'm going to cut a piece of this big enough for the bow on Minnie Mouse. I'm going to cut a piece of this for the face, and we'll get started. So I printed my design. You don't have to do that. That's just a step that I like to do. But I printed it down, marked the center of the bag, and I just taped this into place. So the next thing I'm going to do is spray some 505 adhesive spray on my tearaway stabilizer. And I'm just going to place that inside the bag right under this image. So there is a pocket inside this bag, and I am going to remove that pocket out of my way and place this stabilizer underneath of it. I'm going to use my 7.5 inch Mighty hoop. I love this hoop. It's perfect for bags, and I'm just placing that inside the bag. Again, I've got that pocket flipped out so that it's not getting caught in there, and I'm doing my best just to center the bottom of the hoop inside the bag. I'm going to make sure that it's straight. It doesn't have to be exactly center. We can do that at the machine, but you want to make sure that you've got room all the way around. Once I've got that into place, simply clip that magnetic top right on it, and we are ready to take it over to the machine. Over here at the machine, I've got everything loaded up on the machine, and I just need to make sure that the design is centered with needle number 1. So I'm just moving the hoop accordingly, get that centered under needle number 1, which is this first needle. We're all centered up. So let's go ahead and do a trace, make sure it's going to fit. I'm just watching needle number 1, make sure that's not coming anywhere near the edges of the hoop. It looks good. I'm doing a double check to make sure that the handles and that pocket are out of the way. I'm going to remove my image. That's why I like to just tape it down. It just makes it easy just to lift it and move it out of the way. And then we're going to go ahead and stitch step number 1, which is our placement stitch for the outline of the Mickey. We're going to be using the crushed velvet for the head of the Mickey, and prior to coming over to the machine, I added the Heat and Bond on the back. You can see it right here, and I'm just peeling away that paper backing. So you'll have a shiny side, and then I've got the crushed velvet side. That shiny side is the adhesive. That's going to go flat. Not only does this keep the fabric flat and keeps it from puckering, but it also, this fabric is really flimsy, really drapey, and it keeps it nice and flat while it's stitching it down. So now we're running step number 2, which is the tack down stitch. You're gonna let that finish, and then you can either try to trim around your applique, your stitches right here at the machine, or I recommend actually taking it off of the machine. I ended up taking this off, but you want to make sure and cut around your stitches just to the outside of them. You want to get as close as you can without cutting through the stitches. So again, I ended up taking it off of the machine to finish it up on the top, but you can do whatever works for you. So go ahead and trim all the way around the Mickey. Once I've got him all trimmed up, we've put him back on the machine, made sure those handles are out of the way, and I'm just using a lint roller just to get some of those fuzzy pieces off. Just want to make sure we don't get that caught in the stitches. And then we're going to go ahead and run the next step, which is the decorative satin stitch around the Mickey head, or in this case, I guess it's Minnie Mouse. So we're going to go ahead and run that satin stitch. So I noticed there was a piece that I didn't trim up very well, so I stopped the machine, trimmed that up. Make sure you're not reaching in there when the machine is running. That's not a good practice ever. So once this satin stitch runs, we're going to switch over to the placement stitch for our bow, which is the exciting part. That's where we're going to use these sequins. So I'm going to be using red thread. It's going to stitch the placement stitch. And I believe we're on step number 4. So there you can see the outline for, or the placement stitch for our sequins. We're going to put this back in the machine. Make sure if you're taking it on and off of your machine that you're making sure each time that the handles are out of the way, any pockets are out of the way, and that you're ready to stitch before you press that start button. All right, looks like we're good to go. Let's add our sequins. Now, this is the flip sequin, so I want the red to show, so I made sure that all of the sequins are pushed down. So you see if you're pushed up, it shows the gold side. So I've got the sequins all pushed to the red side. That's what I want to show ultimately most of the time. I mean, we can play with it a little bit. There's not a whole lot of room to flip these, but I do want the red sequins to show. So I'm going to go ahead and do my placement stitch. And it very easily stitches right over these sequins. I was a little bit concerned that it was going to be an issue, but I didn't have any problem. This is the Racoma EM1010. I didn't have any issues with it stitching right through those sequins. And I think it's just a very, very cool wow factor. So once we have that tacked down, I do recommend taking it off of the machine to trim this down. This is a little bit more difficult to trim because you're actually cutting those sequins. I would not use your best embroidery scissors. I would take your time, find some smaller scissors that you don't mind getting a little bit dull. One project's not going to ruin them, but if you're going to make a lot of sequin projects, you definitely want to reserve a pair of scissors. I find the smaller scissors work better, but they do need to be strong enough to cut through these sequins. So you can see I am just very easily cutting through it. Now the center of the bows is a little bit more tricky to get up in those really small areas, but you need to do this just like you did the applique on the black part. You need to be able to get as close to those stitch lines as you can. This isn't a really wide satin stitch that finishes it. So you need to get those sequins trimmed as close as you can. I find it really helps if you rotate the hoop, don't rotate your arms trying to get around. So just take your time, do the best you can, trim it up. I'm using a combination of different scissors just to get through it and just to navigate through the various curves and edges and small places. This pair is really, really strong. This is like, I don't know what they're called, but they're like super scissors. They're not embroidery scissors, and they very easily cut through it. My only issue is it would be easier to use curved tips on the really small areas, and these are not curved, they're straight. But just do the best you can, and again, rotate the hoop. Don't try to rotate your arm and get in all kinds of contortions trying to get around the project. Just keep rotating the hoop as you work around. But it does trim fairly easily. So I'm just going to let this keep running. I would speed it up, but I wanted you to see that, not to be afraid of the sequins, because it really isn't difficult. You just need to take your time and you'll be able to trim it just like you did the regular fabric. Now it does shed as you're trimming these up. Obviously you're cutting sequins off. So have that lint roller ready to clean it up, and you might want to shake it off over a trash can or something when you're done. You can see a lot of little sequined pieces here. So before we head back to the machine, I am going to go ahead and add a piece of water-soluble topping to the lower part of the Mickey face. I'm going to stitch Evie's name on top of this, and it's kind of a plush fabric, so I don't want those stitches to sink down in. So I'm just going to save myself a step and go ahead and put the water-soluble on this half. Then we'll return it to the machine and start that satin stitch around the bow. So here we are back at the machine. You can see I've got that water-soluble topping right on top, and we're ready to stitch the last step of the mini head before we stitch Evie's name. I will note I didn't have one single thread break stitching this out, so those sequins really were a non-factor in the finished project or in embroidering this project. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off, and then we're going to stitch Evie's name. We're ready for the final stitch. This is the name Evie. I use the Dennis font from Apex Embroidery. Very similar to a Disney font. It looks, stitches out really, really well. I will include links in the description below the video to both the font and the mini applique. I have no complaints about either file. They both stitched out very, very nicely. And here we are. So we just need to remove the water-soluble topping. Super easy. Give a little bit of a cleanup. Pick up some of those sequins. And if you don't have one of these in your craft room, what are you doing? I use this tool all of the time. I saw this on another YouTuber. I think it was Bingham Bliss maybe. She had it and I thought, that is brilliant. It's just a little handheld USB charged vacuum. And I keep it in my dream box right there on my work table all the time. And I use this all the time to pick up threads. You're not wiping them onto the floor. You're not just swiping things to the side. Super, super useful. So you can see here how I worked under that pocket. And this is tearaway stabilizer. So I'm just going to remove it, trim it, and turn this right side out, and we are good to go. So you can see here, this is a pretty small area to flip the sequins. You can flip them, but I really just wanted it on the red side anyway. But I like this crushed velvet on the mini part. I think it's so cute, and Evie's going to love it. This bag is from JP Plus. I will link it in the description below the video, as well as the vacuum too, if you're interested in that. So overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I think it would be really cute to put on a shirt or a little bag or a lunch tote, anything like that. Obviously, you don't want to put their name on some things, but I think this is adorable. I love the added wow factor of the sequins, and she loves those flip sequences. So you can see here, I got them all on the gold side, and then again, you can just flip them down to the red side. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and it inspired you to try some flip sequins. Everything I used is linked in the description below the video. Thanks so much for watching, and always never stop making. See ya. Bye-bye.